It's not that easy to make a guide about it. After all, everybody has his preferences. One wants to be able to turn 360 degrees during a jump, the other doesn't get to handle such a sensitive control. So it's not always good to use the settings of the best pro player in the world, because he has trained hundreds of hours with these settings. So don't look at the numbers as being set in stone, but take them as a reference point where you should try something.
Spartan down.
I play with an Elite 2 controller, and because of the freely assigned paddles on the back, I have more options to adjust the control. So I will split this guide into two parts, one with the standard Xbox controller and one with the Elite controller. In the video description you will find a chapter selection, so you can jump directly to the right part. If you like this video, give me a subscription and activate the bell, so you don't miss any more guides. Speaking of missing out, do you already know my guide for a clearer view in Halo, or the one with the tips on what a beginner needs to know when he starts with the first rounds in multiplayer?
Spectacular victory!
Enough blah blah, let's finally get started. In shooters it is of course the most important to have the thumbs or fingers as long as possible on the most important buttons and the sticks. That's why the button layout is an important setting that is often ignored. Because the default settings are mostly set like the layout is in most shooters, so that everyone finds easily in the game. But not every shooter plays the same, in one these functions are often used, in another these. That's why it's worth to look at the different layouts a little closer, because you can see the differences in the menu sometimes difficult. Here's a little help from me. Take a sheet of paper and make a table. In the first column you enter the keys, in the second column then the functions of the standard layout, and the next you enter the next key layout, but only where something changes from the standard layout. It is the same, leave it blank. This is faster, and if you have written down all the bindings, you can see very well where the keys change. Now you outline the lines where you always have the hands, so right stick, left stick, LT, LB, RT, RB, and you look at which layout the keys there are taken with functions that are important and are often used in the respective game. In Halo, you can also assign the keys completely free, then no wishes should be open. What disturbs me about the standard assignment is that jumping is on the A button. And jumping is need often in Halo. Also some trick jumps are almost impossible to perform, because you always have to take your thumb off the stick and can't turn fast enough to perform it. So we look in our table and see that only the two assignments, bumper jump and hell jumper, have this on LB. Many pro players use bumper jump, but I like to play hell jumper, because the zoom stays on LT and doesn't move to the right stick. Just try 10 rounds with the different layouts and see which one you like best. Unusual is that there is no layout where you can fire on RB, because you don't have to go the long trigger way. But as I said, you can also set each key individually, so that the firing is done as fast as possible.
Killing spree!
I disabled the vibration settings for multiplayer because you get distracted there every time. In fast games where milliseconds matter, I want to fully focus on what's happening. Invert Look does what it says. You move the stick up, but in the game you move down. Some swear by it and think they got better with it, but I just can't handle it, so these are all disabled for me. Hold to crouch. In any case switch on. As already said in my beginner guide, there are many boxes and objects in Halo where you can jump on and skip the climbing animation if you press the crouch button at the right moment. It is extremely disturbing if you are still crouched after that and the advantage is lost again. But also in some fights, you can distract the opponent by short crouching and make the aiming a bit more difficult. Since the zoom is always on a key that is always reachable in all key layouts, hold to zoom can also be turned on here. If it is on the right stick, however, it can make aiming more difficult if you have to press the stick in and aim at the same time, so you can try deactivating the option. I have deactivated hold to sprint. Because in many key layouts, including the recommended bumper jumper and hell jumper, sprinting is on the A key and you have to take your finger off the stick. I have also activated Maintain Sprint, which keeps you in sprint mode after some actions. If you have deactivated this and jump or drop from a platform, sprinting is then interrupted. Automatic Clamber, deactivated many players, then you no longer automatically pull yourself up on a ledge when you jump towards it, but have to use the jump button a second time to pull yourself up. If you want to jump up behind a high cover to shoot at an enemy, it can no longer happen that you accidentally pull yourself up on the ledge instead of shooting. If it is activated, it can happen that you want to jump away in a fight to escape, the game recognizes a ledge and the climbing animation interrupts your aiming and the opponent can comfortably take aim at you. Step jump ensures that you don't execute a full jump behind small barriers, you jump up just enough to jump over or onto the barrier. For this you have to run forward behind a small barrier and tap the jump button. If you don't press forward or if you have deactivated the option, a full jump will be executed up to the maximum height. I have the option activated. Often you stand on a higher platform and the enemy you are aiming at will disappear behind the railing or sandbags, there you will have a faster control again after a shorter jump. Sensitivity and acceleration. I have turned down Look Acceleration. This option means that the more you move the right stick, the more accelerated the motion, so if you move the stick only minimally, the crosshair will move slower, if you move it a lot, the motion will be accelerated. Halo is a fast game and the enemies jump a lot, you often have to move the stick a lot, with a high acceleration it is harder to keep the enemy in the crosshairs. I have increased the horizontal look sensitivity, because I have to counterbalance the speed a bit in order to the low look acceleration. The vertical look sensitivity, I have a bit lower than the horizontal, because in Halo you don't have to look up and down so fast turning is more important here. Also, many enemies try to escape with a jump, so the lower sensitivity helps you not to aim too high. At zoom sensitivity you can set the sensitivity for all zoom levels individually, that means at zoom level you choose the specific zoom level. You have to know which weapons have which zoom level, some weapons have multiple zoom levels. Here is a small overview of all current weapons. At sensitivity you can adjust the value. 1.0 means it has the same speed as the one you set for the sensitivity and acceleration in the last section. If you go under 1.0 it will be slower in the current zoom level, if you go higher it will multiply the sensitivity. So if you have a weapon in the game that you don't like in zoom you can adjust it here. You can start a training match. There you can choose the weapon you want in the training options, set yourself to Immortal with infinite ammo and comfortably test the individual zoom levels. Center dead zone and axial dead zone, these values should also be tested in a training match. This setting determines when the stick reacts and should prevent stick drift. Since this is different for each controller, I recommend testing it and setting the value as low as possible. If you move by itself in the game, set the value higher until this stops and then take a step buffer for safety. The advantage is that the stick now reacts much faster than with the very high standard settings. What is the difference between center dead zone and axial dead zone? The center describes how small the circle becomes in all directions, so how far you have to tilt the stick until from the center that the game reacts. Axial tolerance is basically the same, except that it is about the X and Y axis. If you look at the mechanics of the sticks there are only the X and Y axis, so up, down, left, right, all other positions, such as sloping upwards result from the values of the two axes. I always make it so that the value of the center is always slightly lower than for the axes. When adjusting you should move the sticks only very slightly and then let go. If the movement stops immediately it is good, if it moves further you have to increase the value. Maximum input threshold sets the maximum input of the stick, where the maximum tilt angle is, where movement or look can be enhanced. I left this at the default value of 10. The settings for the second stick are the same. These were now the settings for the standard Xbox controller. As I said, do not just blindly pick the values that my or another video suggests to you, the step is often too big. Try to understand what is behind the numbers and adjust them according to your playstyle. If you notice that you turn for example too slow and the enemies jump away from you, then increase the sensitivity 1 to 2 points maximum and play a few rounds. They still move too fast, increase another 1 to 2 points until you can follow them before the control becomes too sensitive. Then go back down a bit with the settings and practice more rounds until you are ready to increase them. You need to train your so-called muscle memory, and that works best in small steps.
Lost the lead.
Now we talk about the Elite 2 controller. Here you still have 4 paddles on the back, which you can operate without taking your fingers off the sticks, the triggers, or bumpers. Go to Apps on Xbox Accessories. On these paddles, I still have the functions Reload, Ping, Change Weapon and Sprint. Since it sometimes happens that you use the wrong paddles, I have on the left side, Reload and Ping, and on the right side, Change Weapon and Sprint. This way, no actions will be triggered and you hit the wrong buttons with your sausage fingers, that might cost you digital life in combat. You can also replace Ping with use equipment, but Ping is a much underrated function that is also too hard to reach on the D-pad to use it quickly enough. On the left stick I set calculation to true diagonals and on the right stick Sensivity curve to aggressive, curve adjustment all the way to the left and calculation to true diagonals. For both triggers, I set the values to 0 and 1, so that they react at the smallest tap. I have already deactivated vibration in the game. Last, but not least, I set the illumination to the lowest level and we are done in the setup menu. The triggers are of course set to very short. For the right stick I would set the long extension. This needs some practice, but allows a little more sensitivity when looking around. For the directional pad I would use the classic cap and not the round one. Now we done. We have made all controller settings. You still missing something or was something not understandable, then let me know in the comments. On my channel you can find more guides to Halo Infinite or the unboxing of the Halo Limited Series X as well as a lot of gameplay. It's nice to have a look. Links to the videos and playlists can be found in the video description. Have fun and good luck with the game.